Thank you for coming. We are very pleased to have Dawn Holtz here today. Every day when I come here in the morning, when Dawn is here, I get greeted in a way that is the most cheerful thing I've experienced in many years. And it's because, number one, Dawn is a morning person and I am not, so I'm kind of like Mr. Krabby. But Dawn says, "Hi, Bob," and tells me things that I didn't know and makes me feel good that I've come to work, because sometimes I'm not feeling that good. Anyway, I admire Dawn, and I admire what I have learned about Dawn that makes her be a positive, upbeat person every day when I see her, and every morning and every day, every part of every other day. So we are pleased to have Dawn here to tell us about the Milarepa Center, and one of the many things that makes her the wonderful person that she is. Here's Dawn.
Thanks, Bob. Okay. Well, as Bob said, my name is Dawn Holtz. So I'm the director of Milarepa Center. Do you guys know Milarepa Center at all? A little bit? So we are in Barnet, Vermont, right off of Route 5. So everyone, when I tell them where I'm at, they do this. They're like, "Oh, the place with the driveway like this." So, and the prayer flags and the big monument thing that overlooks the interstate. That's how everybody knows us. So hence the talk tonight was to just kind of, let people know who we are, what we do, why we do it, and all that other good stuff. And then, so I thought maybe what we could do is I would just kind of give you some background information on the center and kind of what we do. And then the rest of the time we could just have a discussion. If you guys want to, talk about any questions or anything, we could just kind of run it like that. So Milarepa Center is part of a larger organization called the FPMT, which is the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. So we are Tibetan Mahayana Buddhists. That organization we're affiliated with has over 160 centers and study groups around the world. So we're the only one in Vermont, and we do have a sister center that is also an affiliate of the FPMT just outside of Boston, called Gurukula Center. But other than that, we're pretty much the only two here on the East Coast. There's a few study groups here and there, but we are it for centers. What makes Milarepa Center special is in that whole network of 160 plus centers worldwide, there's only 5 centers in the United States that offer proper conditions to do private retreat, and Milarepa Center is one of them, and we're the only one on the East Coast. So the center I just mentioned before, in just outside of Boston, is a city center, so they don't have facilities for people to do private retreat. So that kind of makes Milarepa special in that, we're here in the Connecticut River Valley, and we have 275 acres. It's very quiet up there on our hill, so it's a really conducive environment for private retreat. So let's see, so Milarepa Center has been around, we're going close to 38 years now, almost 39. And one of my favorite things to tell people about Milarepa Center is that it truly exists because of the kindness of others. So the center itself was the land in the house was purchased by a man named Peter Baker in an auction. There was no access to the property anymore when 91 came through, so he was able to buy that property and the farmhouse that was on it for, I think, around $30,000. So he bought the property and he gifted it to the FPMT to be used as a retreat center. So that's how it came to be in the FPMT network of centers. So, and I just want to mention before I forget, there is info back there on the table there. There's pamphlets for the center. There's a sign-up list if you would like to receive our newsletter, and then there's just some info. There's a map that shows all the centers around the world that we have, and there's a little bit more about the FPMT and kind of the culture of that organization. So the one thing that I get asked a lot is, are we part of Karma Choling? We are not part of Karma Choling. We're not affiliated at all with Karma Choling, other than we kind of share a mountain, which is really great. But they are also Tibetan Buddhists, but they are in a different lineage than we are, which I'll talk about those in a few minutes. But, and then, so Milarepa has gone through, some changes over the years. The current focus right now is primarily private retreat. So we have cabins that we offer people who are looking to do private retreat. It's all on our website at milarepacenter.org. And you can get all the information there as well. There's program listings on there. We do still offer public programs when we can, and when there's touring teachers. I don't know if you guys were here when Geshe Shurab came and did the talk here, and then that was followed by a weekend retreat at the center. So we do still do public programs occasionally as well. So I thought maybe I would just kind of talk about why Milarepa Center does what it does, which is primarily to give people a space to work with their minds, to study and practice the Dharma, to learn, to be with other Dharma practitioners. That's really kind of the why behind what we do. So the other parts of what I thought we could talk about is just kind of what those differences are primarily between us and Karma Choling and maybe some of the other Buddhist lineages that you might be familiar with. So Tibetan Buddhism has four main schools of Buddhism. Four lineages. So there's the Nyingma tradition, there's the Sakya tradition, there's the Kagyu tradition, which is Karma Choling, and then there's the Gelugpa tradition, which is what Milarepa Center is. And you can kind of always know the Gelugpa tradition. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is a Gelugpa monk. They have the yellow hats, they call it the banana hats sometimes. So that kind of, will let you know that that's probably a Gelugpa monk if you see that. And then the main differences between those four schools really have to do with they all kind of share the same content, but it's where they put the emphasis. So that's the main difference between those four schools. So for instance, Kagyu tradition, such as Karma Choling, the emphasis is primarily on using meditation as a tool to awaken, where the Gelugpa tradition, which is our tradition, tends to be a little bit more monastic. And you have many monks and nuns living in what's called the Vinaya, which is the discipline of being a monk or a nun, and the emphasis is really on discipline, study, and then practice. So kind of the belief that study and discipline will result in a strong practice. So those are kind of the main differences between those things. And then the other things to know about the Gelugpa tradition is the founder of the Gelugpa tradition was a being named Lama Tsongkhapa. So what was really special about him is he kind of took all the Buddhist teachings, which are not necessarily easy to understand if you've read any of the sutras or anything, but he kind of took them all and he laid them out in a very methodical path. So he wrote what's called the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. So it's very clearly laid out. You do this, then you do this, then you do this, and that's called the Lam Rim. So you'll kind of, if you see, a Lam Rim retreat or something, that kind of is signifying that it's going through the stages of the path to enlightenment. So that's kind of unique to the Gelugpa tradition and to Lama Tsongkhapa. and he was Tibetan, and he primarily studied and stayed in Tibet, and just really kind of focused on laying out these teachings. So that's kind of, I'm going to just stop there for a minute because that's kind of a lot of information to absorb, and maybe we could just have, if anybody has anything they want to say or ask, or we can just kind of have a little discussion about that. But that's kind of the background of how we've come to be what we're doing today. And the Gelugpa tradition is, to my knowledge, is the youngest school of Tibetan Buddhism, so Nyingma being the oldest. So if that helps you at all. Yeah, so does anyone have anything? Or?
How do the traditions interact? Do they?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, the Sakya tradition, they definitely are much more focused on what's called like completion stages and practices, which kind of overlaps with Gelugpa tradition. I always kind of joke we're the boring Buddhists, we're the more kind of like ritualistic, Buddhists that kind of do all the, the pujas and the sogs every month, and the ritual practices that Westerners aren't totally accustomed to, and maybe not that interested in. But there's belief that, in those practices there is, fruit to get you to where you need to be. So, but as far as, they interact as far as, there's no disagreement between any of them. Like I said, the content is kind of all the same. It's just, they just put emphasis on different parts of all the content. So, yeah. So, and it's fine if nobody has any questions. I just wanted to make sure that you got an opportunity to say anything.
A simple question.
Yeah.
The founder of this lineage, when was he alive?
1400s. I don't know exact. I want to say maybe 1450 to like 1514, somewhere around there. So, yeah. And Milarepa actually is a being, Jetson Milarepa. He was actually a Kagyu practitioner. So I think you guys do more, I know you guys do Milarepa Day and and things like that. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, Milarepa was an amazing being. If no one has any other questions so far, I could talk about him a little bit. So Milarepa was kind of a bad guy. He killed a lot of people, and then he felt great remorse, and so he kind of took to the hills and sought out a teacher, and stayed in retreat pretty much for his entire life after he had killed all these people, and what's really special about him is he got enlightened in one lifetime. So he was able to achieve that in that one lifetime. I always kind of like to think that, he did kill a lot of people, but there was a good cause behind it. His family was, not that it's good to kill people, but his family was, his father died when he was very young, and they were kind of a well-off family, and so everything was entrusted to the uncle, which was his father's brother, to take care of until Milarepa could, come of age and take over. And once the father died, the uncle then decided that he would keep everything for himself and his own family, and he made Milarepa and Milarepa's mother and younger sibling basically into his servants. So, and kind of stole all their family possessions and money. And so Milarepa's mother was very distraught by this, and so she, wanted Milarepa to learn black magic and to seek revenge on this uncle who had done this to them. incidentally, he ended up killing a lot of people. And so, like I said, he felt great remorse, and so he went and he sought out a teacher whose name was Marpa Latsawa. And Marpa taught him, gave him teachings, but Milarepa, you know, again, kind of what's special about him is he really did achieve enlightenment pretty strictly through meditation practices. So that's, you know, when, not that Kagyu and Galupa ever argue about the difference, but you know, that does kind of hold up the Kagyu belief that, you know, meditation can be the path, because it worked for Milarepa. So Milarepa didn't study any text or anything until he was already well into his path. So, and his story is in a book called The Life of Milarepa, which if you ever have a chance to read is a really great book. So, yeah. So I don't really have much more than that. I just kind of wanted to give a background of the center, and I just kind of wanted to be around in case people wanted to ask anything about the center, or I can tell you some things we have coming up. We have another spring retreat day happening on April 20th, and then another one on May 4th. Those are open to anybody. They're by donation. We just ask that you register, and you can do that on our website, or you can email us at Milarepa Center, milarepa@milarepacenter.org, and the info is on the table there as well. And then we have a great retreat in June, 2-day retreat that is not, it's actually a secular program. It's not a Buddhist program, but it's called Finding Your Happy, and it's 16 guidelines, which is a really neat program. It takes these 16 guidelines, such as like patience, humility, compassion, all these things, and it kind of gives you a working foundation for each guideline and how to kind of incorporate it into your life. And then each guideline has a person that embodies that you know, is kind of, you can kind of look to kind of see, you know, how that works in their lives. Patience is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, with everything with the Chinese and Tibet. So major patience there. Yeah, so that info is there, and there's some small sheets you're welcome to take as well that just kind of list out other programs we have, you know, pretty much through, I think, August or September. So, yeah. So I think that's it. Yes.
You said you do rituals and pujas and stuff like that. When do those happen, and who's involved?
So those happen monthly. I usually put them on the website. Actually, the last Medicine Buddha we did, which is one of the monthly ritual practices that happens on the full moon, a lot of Karma Trolling people came. Yeah, it was very nice. Yes, it was very nice. We all did practice together, yeah. So it was a nice evening, yeah. So they happen, we follow the Tibetan calendar, so the dates are a little bit off from, you know, some of them, but I put, you know, it's on the website, so under programs, yeah. And then it's just anybody that comes, we all practice together. And we have booklets and prayer books and everything that guide you right through the practices, so yeah. So it's usually me and a few other people. Sometimes it's just me. But that's okay. And yeah, I think that's...
Are you the only resident there?
There is, Jackie is a resident there as well, and then we do have volunteers sometimes that come through. It just kind of depends on where we're at, what we're doing. And then we usually have people in private retreat as well. So,
Do you have cabins for that?
Yes, we do. Yeah. We have 4 cabins, 2 primarily that are being used because they're you can fully be on your own. You can cook, you have your own bathroom and everything. So which is kind of, you know, when you're doing private retreat is kind of important. And then we have 2 cabins that act as more like remote bedrooms that will get used when we do like bigger programs. And then we have 2 seasonal cabins that are about a 10 or 15 minute walk back into the woods, and they don't have anything. So those take a special type of person. to go back there, but still very nice. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because another special thing about Milarepa Center is those two cabins that are a 10 or 15 minute walk back. A man and a woman back in the early 90s did 3-year retreat back there. So they were back there for 3 years. Yeah, they never came out. They almost died. They almost froze to death because their wood stoves weren't working properly. So they couldn't, the exhaust wasn't working properly, so they just quit using them. But yeah, they were back there for 3 years. He's a monk now. He's been a monk for a very long time. She is not ordained anymore, but yeah, they did 3-year retreat back there. So there's been some amazing, blessings happening on that land, and there's good energy there for sure. So yeah, and it's a beautiful place. I always tell people, you should at the very least come up and see it. And we just ask that people make arrangements with us in advance now, because we do have people in private retreat, and then also, because sometimes we may not be there, and I would hate for somebody to not be able to, see the center if they came up and we're not there. So, but yeah. So thanks for asking. Is that it?
Would you want to talk at all about how you came to Buddhism, because either you were born into it or you were not, and how you came to this tradition? And if you prefer not to, I am not trying to ask you anything you don't.
No, I'm happy to share that. So let's see, let me think of like the Cliff Notes version of that story. So I was kind of searching when I was in my 20s. I was really I just knew that the religion I had been brought up in, which was Baptist, wasn't really working for me. And my parents were not really heavily into it. They just, believed in God, but I don't know that it went beyond that. But that didn't really work for me. So I just kind of got to a point where I started kind of researching a lot of different religions, and then I kind of got to a point where I really wasn't very happy in my life, but for no reason. I mean, I had a very nice life. There was no reason for me not to be happy. So I just kind of kept searching, and then the first Buddhist book I read was The Four Noble Truths by Geshe Tashi Tsering, which is a great book, and I read it, and it just completely made sense to me. And I'm also very much I don't have blind faith, so you really have to kind of, if you want me to believe something, you really got to show me. And Buddhism just kind of has been able to do that. I've yet to find something that I can argue, and I've tried. But it just really makes sense for me and worked for me in my mind. And so I just kind of kept going deeper with it. And actually, I was in Michigan at the time, where there's not a lot of Buddhism present, or there wasn't at that time. So I was driving 3 hours to the other side of the state every weekend to sit with a Shambhala group, because it was the only group of meditators I could find that was studying Buddhism. And so I went and I would sit with them, and I really enjoyed it. And then I kind of started doing retreats, and like group retreats, and then I wanted to take my practice deeper, so I was going to come to Karma Trolling for a work study program, and I was online. And I was actually I was looking for hiking trails in the area, because I thought, okay, when I'm not doing that, I'll see what else is available, and Milarepa Center popped up online, and I was like, what? And I recognized the logo for the FPMT, which it's on our website. It's just a multicolored mandala. I recognized it it was in the back of the book, of the Four Noble Truths book that I had read. And I said, oh, the FPMT, yeah, and so I called, and there was a nun who was running the center at the time, Venerable Amy Miller, and I spoke with her, and we had a really nice phone call, and she told me they were also doing a work-study program, and I was like, oh. So I ditched Karma Joe, and no, I went to Milarepa Center because it felt more, the Gelugpa tradition just kind of worked more for me, and I think, I don't think there's anything wrong with any of them. You know, I think it's just you have to find what suits your personality, you know, and for me, the study and the discipline and the practice worked. You know, I remember sitting in my first couple Shambhala retreats and, you know, meditating, and all I could think about was like, please ring the bell. Like, I'm gonna lose it here. Like, so I'm better now, but yeah, it was just like, come on, you know. But Karma Choling's great. Yeah, I mean, I send people over there a lot. You know, we go over there a lot. We love walking up to their stupa. It's a beautiful. You walk up this kind of long road, and it opens up to this like gorgeous kind of, I don't know, would you call that a pasture or? Yeah, and then there's a stupa there, and Chogyam Trungpa is in that stupa, and that's amazing, yeah. And speaking of stupas, I'm so sorry, I didn't talk about our stupa that overlooks 91, that many people have probably seen. So a stupa is, if you've seen the one that overlooks 91, it's kind of a, I don't know, like a reliquary, basically, and it's a symbol of enlightenment, of wisdom. Our particular stupa is called the Stupa of Many Doors. So if you ever have a chance, you can just walk up and walk around the stupa, and you'll see on all the sides there's many doors with little Buddhas inside of them. Most stupas are filled with mantras, some sort of relics. Ours have many mantras in them. A lot of the stone is local stone. The granite for the piece on the top is local granite. And then the inside of the stupa, there are the ashes of Geshe Lobsang Jampa, who was the first resident teacher at Milarepa Center. So, and Chogyam Trungpa is in the stupa at Karma Choling. So, right, to my knowledge, I don't want to misspeak, but yeah, so that's kind of, and you know, the reason our stupa is where it is, I can probably guess some of that has to do with that's where they said we could put it, but the state, but also is so that anybody who's kind of driving by gets the blessings from the stupa, and it has some lights on it that kind of, you know, light it up at night. So there's a practice you can do called korwa, which is you walk around the stupa in clockwise direction. Some people find it very meditative to do that, and you just kind of absorb those blessings. So yeah, it's really nice. So okay.
Do you want to talk about the Mahayana?
Yes, actually, let's get that. So Mahayana Buddhists are a little bit different than, say, Theravadan Buddhists. Those would be like your Thich Nhat Hanh, or maybe Zen practitioners. Although I shouldn't say that because there might be Zen practitioners who also are Mahayana. But the Mahayana Buddhists are all Buddhism teaches to achieve enlightenment, and Mahayana Buddhism in particular says, yes, we want to achieve enlightenment, but they take it one step further and say we want to achieve enlightenment so that we can be of benefit to others. So a Mahayana Buddhist is always kind of, that's where like your bodhisattvas come in, which are people who have kind of committed their lives to, living their lives for the benefit of others. So everything we do is for the benefit of others. So you can kind of see why, knowing that His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, is, a Mahayana Tibetan Buddhist, you can kind of see why he's always talking about cherishing others. And so that's kind of the core belief of a Mahayana Buddhist, is that even your enlightenment is for the benefit of others. So.
Did you mention the Milarepa's represents Hinayana? What is,
Hinayana? Mahayana.
oh, it's Mahayana.
It's Mahayana, yeah. Yeah.
What's the difference between Hinayana and Mahayana?
Yeah, Hinayana is basically the same, like, is the same as the Theravada, and the difference is the Enlightenment kind of stops at the self. So, both still wanting to, achieve the state of nirvana, but one kind of stops there, and one says, we want to take it one step further and do this for the benefit of others. So, to my knowledge, there could be more behind that, but.
I would want to talk about that.
You what?
I would like to talk about that, but not.
Yeah. 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 Oh yeah, there's a big discussion there, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Yeah. Yeah. And we can talk about that a little bit more if you want. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, there's info back there if you need it. I'm here. Jackie can also answer any questions if you have any. And yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.